We're going live, sharing the mindsets. We have a very, very special guest today, and I can't even believe that he came in here, but it's an honor to have, none other than our CEO of the Toronto Real Estate Board, John DiMichele. How do you say that?
DiMichele.
DiMichele, right? It's almost like a Michelle, but throw in the DiMichele. Beautiful. Nice Irish name, Italian, right?
That's right. So my first name is Giovanni in real life.
Giovanni, of course, right? Beautiful. How do you become the CEO of the Toronto Real Estate Board? There's 70 or 80,000 agents. I know every day it's changing. So it's the largest real estate board in North America. So he leads the whole board, the CEO. We've had presidents in here, but never the CEO. So this is the first. With a background in both real estate practice and technology, John has a unique ability to bridge industry needs with modern solutions. He plays a key role in advancing a future-ready MLS system, protecting data and privacy. John has also contributed nationally through the work with OREA, Canadian Real Estate Association, as chair of the National MLS and Technology Council. His leadership continues to inspire collaboration, elevate industry standards, and support the long-term growth of real estate professionals and communities throughout the Toronto GTA. So let's greet him with a big hand.
Thank you, Daryl. I really appreciate you. This is really.
I'm so happy to have you with short notice. He's in here and ready to share his wisdom with us. So I'm so excited. So tell us a little bit about yourself here.
Well,
how did you get to become, my first question, you used to practice in real estate like I did.
I did.
And, how did you get to become the CEO of the largest Toronto real estate board in the world?
That's a good question, but it's just, I guess you just say yes a lot. You learn to say yes.
You had to volunteer a lot.
Yes, I did.
You volunteered a lot to get there. Now they actually pay you.
Well, yeah.
But you had to volunteer a lot of different committees to get to where you are now. People don't understand that. Right?
Well, I started in the 90s as a realtor, and I had very small babies. And I was a realtor, but it was a tough time. And
the 90s were very tough.
Yes, they were.
Today and the 90s were the two toughest parts of real estate.
Yes, actually, right. 2008. You remember?
After and 2008 was that was very tough for a bit too.
But I think what happened was, as soon as I got my license, I went to the board in Oakville. We had like 550 members, and at that time, in order to trade, you had to be a member also of Toronto
Real Estate Board,
and also Hamilton.
Oh, both
get all the information. So I had to be members of three boards. It was
more
expensive, crazy. Okay. So I walked in and I met the EO. Her name was May Barrett. And we had a quick chat. And as I'm walking out, she goes, "Would you be interested in being on a committee?" Now I had already been involved in United Way and Big Brothers. And so they kind of knew me a little. And I said, "Sure, I'll do it. What do you want me to do?" She goes, "I want you to be the green committee. So environmental." Imagine. My job is to try to get recycling started in the brokerages.
So many years ago, I was not even heard of them.
And so then shortly thereafter, literally within a year, I get a call from a friend of mine, and he goes, "Congratulations, you're on the board of directors of the Oakville Milton Regional Real Estate Board." And I went, "Huh?" I didn't even put my name forward. So I was on the board there, and I met amazing people. People you like, Sherry Chris.
Oh, beautiful. I love Sherry. Sherry's amazing.
Madigan was there. Jerry England was the
Jerry England, yeah, he was the president
of TRREB. And so all of a sudden, I'm in this watershed world of all these people like David.
The who's who,
yeah,
of the real estate industry.
David Higgins became RECO chair, the very first RECO. Yeah. Just a very interesting opportunity. And then now you're on all the committees. And then TRREB, and I guess I brought Habitat to TRREB as a member of Oakville.
No, we didn't have that before.
No. And they asked me to speak, and I came to TRREB, and it was my first time on a committee at TRREB, and that would have been in the late 90s. And then all the other committees at OREA, at CREA, other boards, in fact, in Hamilton. And then Sherry made me a promise. I said, look, she recruited me to Royal LePage. I was at Century 21 Miller.
And Sherry, that would be her. Tough lady.
Yeah, she was. And I said to her, "Okay, I'll come to Royal LePage if there's a manager's job." because I had kids and I didn't want to be working all the time as a realtor. It's tough enough. And I just wanted some steady. And she kept her promise. So then I moved to the Hamilton board because my office was there on all their committees. I was GR rep for Oakville for 10 years and then again in Hamilton. So I was on all the committees and then I started using my technology know-how. I'll tell you a short technology story. So when I was at Oakville, I realized that I could use, the TTYs that people used to use if they had hearing impairment.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Okay.
vision
Yeah.
impairment. So I manipulated one so I'm the only guy who could access the system at home, right? So I used my technology skills, and then I did the same thing at the at one of my branches. Had them renovate. Gino Romanese actually
Oh, good
allowed
on
me to
you.
renovate. Yeah, on Royal York Road. We expanded, and I dropped Cat 5 cables. Got rid of the shared computer. Said everybody has to buy a laptop, and our market share went from like 20 to 4. We're very lucky there, very lucky in Hamilton. Same sort of story. Then I got a call. Would you like to be on the TRREB board? I said, I don't know. you know,
Yeah.
I mean,
You're walking uncharted waters here.
yeah. And then I got on the board. They elected me, and the rest is history. And then I was hired as CIO there.
So what you get from that is nothing just come, he's immediate CEO. No. He came from a background before he got into real estate and he's going through like a 35-year projection of growing to become that. So it takes time, and a lot of it he paid his dues, even doing as no pay. He got involved. He got some of the most incredible people at that time that you couldn't pick a better crew to learn from. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
exactly true.
like Sherry was unbelievable. She's an icon, right? She just retired a year ago, but she was Better Homes and Gardens down in the United States. She was the CEO of that, right? So she was the vice president at Royal LePage and that, and Gino, vice
Yeah,
president,
Gino.
also
Yeah.
some, and the Higgins in England.
Yeah.
These guys are icons and they're legends in their own right. So you're a rookie coming into the business. So surround yourself with great people and learn from great people. And as I tell people, like one of my clients is telling me about the Toronto Real Estate Board, how it's gone up like 10% or whatever. And I'm going, really? I said, we just seen the stats that, it's down 15.8%. So, it didn't go up. So I'm going to send them that news. And that's, so if you're going to listen to real statistics and someone with professionalism, because too many people know our job, as you know, over the years, that everybody is an expert in real estate. And I was telling them, who are you listening to? Like some of the things I hear, I just shake my head. But, here's the CEO. How many people are on the board now? What's our count today? I have 70,000.
Yeah, it's 70.
70,000.
And it goes up and down, as you
Right.
know, and it'll depend on the market conditions.
Of course, well, this market, challenging market, we've lost a lot of. We were much higher than that,
100%.
right? So, that makes it harder for board fees because you were almost at close to 100,000 at one point, I think. 88,000?
No, we never got that
88?
high, but we were, I guess, almost 76, I think.
76,
Yeah,
77.
76,
So it adds for more board fees like that are come out of the copper. So tougher for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So let's get into this. What do you think is the biggest factor driving the current state of Toronto's real estate market now? As a CEO, you see a lot of things. You talk to a lot of people. You talk to broker managers. Like I went last Friday, they had a tech thing and they talked about, I thought that was very interesting. I really liked that. That was a great session, by the way. And, a lot of new innovative things. So I will talk about that, but let's just think what you feel is driving this. I think I have my opinion, but I know you have another opinion.
Well, you're more connected for sure to the market itself, but just looking at it from a macro level, what I see is uncertainty. Like the consumer isn't confident. The consumer
That's the
confidence
biggest
is
thing.
down. They're worried about what might happen, what could happen. I mean, the tariffs, we got strange things happening south of the border, and even they are feeling that impact. But I guess my problem is if there is value, people will act. But the uncertainty is holding people back. It can't be interest rates. This is sort of like a really good interest rate.
Yeah, they're not bad.
Kind of, yeah, it's not bad at all. In
And
fact,
look at,
yeah.
and I got in 21%.
Yeah.
So these rates
Yeah.
are normal.
So it's not 1.9 like we saw during COVID,
No,
which created.
we're probably not going to see that again.
No, that was an artificial.
Yes.
And maybe designed to help, but I don't know. But it just seemed right now it's the uncertainty. Will they have a job? Am I going to have a job tomorrow? Is it going to affect my work? You know, the tariffs. Are we going to see more uncertainty? Or we're going to straighten out the economy here? Those kind of questions roll around people's minds.
I think that is the biggest thing that I see out there is the uncertainty of so many things. But as I tell people, you know, I've been in this 34 years, whatever. And if you look at real estate and you look at it as a long-term goal, I don't think there's a better time to buy into the market because prices are down. You know, you can negotiate with sellers today. You know, you see some stuff that was up to here and then coming down to here. And I guess everybody's waiting, when's that bottom? When's that bottom? The fact is we don't know when the bottom is. The bottom could be today. So, you know, I see some places if they show well, they're getting multiple offers and selling for full price. Some even over asking price, right? Depends on where they're priced. Maybe the expectations might have been higher at first, but you've got to come into reality because those 2 years were really an artificial market. Interest rates, you know, everybody coming in. So I see the market going back to almost 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago.
You know, that's a really good point. Like I said earlier, if they see value, and I have an example of that on my street. So this house came on, it's right on the corner, pretty busy street, and then our crescent, and one across the street from that house. The one across the street, nice house, great layout, but similar price, no showings, no movement. This house was up for 2 weeks, and it was sold within that period. But the first 2 days, I've never seen the traffic. And like that.
Why was that?
Because when you look at the house, there is value. They look at the price, they look at what the house presents.
So it showed well.
Showed well, and it had everything that a smaller family would want, a younger family. And so you had all these showings, multiple offers. So another house around the corner, huge lot, massive pool, little work inside, same price. Took forever to sell. So the consumer is saying, I want the best possible deal, but I want the value. So I don't want to have to do work. I don't want to have to do anything. They see value and it moved really quick.
So this is something for the consumer, even for the realtors that, and that's what I said on our market watch today, that there is 5,010 sales last month in November. The ones that sold are the ones that were priced right, that showed well, and their expectations were realistic. So, and you could have the same house, but if someone a renovated house to the same house, it's not the same house, right? Because they might have to go in and do 100 or 200,000 rentals. So they're not going to pay the same price as that. And then my house, same as theirs, but we know it's not. So you got to make sure that you're telling the consumers the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. You go to the doctor, you don't want to hear the truth. But if you don't tell the truth, everybody's disappointed. So always be honest up front. And that's what I try and practice with the agents. Tell these stories that, you know, you can get this when you can only get this. It makes us look bad, right?
Yeah, and their expectations get out of hand sometimes. And having been a realtor in today's market, although it's always, this is a market where you can actually say, you probably should be acting if you want to act, right? But then people, I think, are waiting, like you said, for the bottom. But when that happens,
it's too late.
1994, I was a realtor. I thought I was going to starve to death. And then all of a sudden, 1996, click. In 3 weeks, I had 3 sellers. I had 3 buyers. I had 3 houses. In 3 weeks, all of them sold or bought.
Just like that.
Just like that. And I thought, wow, what triggered this? But it happened. 2008, same sort of activity. Bang, everything's moving really quick. And then the buyer actually is driving the market because the seller is going, hey, I'll take this. Great, thank you. This is the offer. I'll take it, right?
So today the buyer is driving the market,
100%.
no doubt. And that's what the consumer sellers have to understand. You sell today, you buy today. Guys, it's a trade-off. So let's talk about the Toronto Real Estate Board. What direction, do you see it, like the technology that I've seen that you look at futuristic cars and stuff like that. So I looked at some of the futuristic of what's coming out for realtors and consumers, and it's breathtaking. It's spectacular. How do you find that shaping our jobs today? You know, they say AI is going to take all our jobs. Now, I think AI can assist us in our jobs, but I don't think it's going to replace me, right?
100%. I mean, when the internet first came out and we started putting listings on the internet, people said, "Oh my God, let's stop putting listings. Why are we doing this? Why are we showing all the listings to the buyers? I mean, and to the sellers? Why are we doing this? Our jobs are gonna go away." But what happened was the complete opposite. All of a sudden, activity increased. More people wanted to talk to realtors. Realtors did
More
better.
exposure.
Yeah. And the reality is that same thing rules apply now. AI is going to have a lot of features. There's also something called agentic AI that's coming right now. And that's agentic AI is where it will help you make a decision. It might say, well, I'm looking at the trends, I'm looking at activity. You might want to consider buying now. What it doesn't know is what the house smells like when you first walk in, right? The realtor actually will know why the house 6 doors down sold for $200,000 more, even though it looks almost the same. See, AI will never be able to do that. AI is going to be able to look at money, at trends and listings and costs and money that's available and say, here's an equation. But it's not going to say, you know, belly to belly, I know you're concerned. AI is never going to say, I know you're concerned ever,
No.
but it's going to say, I know that you have these issues that we've talked about, which is where the realtor comes in. That whole personal, a realtor does a many things. We know all the different categories that a realtor has to be able to.
I didn't get home until 10 o'clock to have dinner. So
there you go.
And I started early in the morning.
Even after the deal.
Right. So yeah, AI can run 24/7, but they're not going to physically go do whatever.
No.
Right. So you learn to need to use AI as a tool to help facilitate your business and cut some of it off. But I wouldn't be afraid of it taking your job today. Maybe in the future, I don't know. But right now, it can facilitate. I think we'll fall behind if we don't use it.
Well, yes. I mean, you'll use it for statistics and trends and all the good things and maybe organizing your activities and even perhaps writing offers, things like that. Will happen. But I think ultimately the human component, again, and I hate to say it, unless AI can smell homes, and be able to really see things, unless you're literally going through the basement and saying, I see fluorescence and stuff like that, whereas a realtor will see these things, or you should change this. Perhaps it can do that, but it would have to be someone driving that. But the knowledge you have, Daryl,
Yes,
over your years,
lot of knowledge.
that knowledge, it's never going to be in that database.
Never. Challenge any AI.
Yeah, 100%.
Bring him on.
100%.
Bring him or her, whatever.
Yeah, whatever
right?
it is.
So what buyer and seller trends are standing out that we head into 2026? So right now we know it's a buyer's trend. What's your thoughts for 2026 moving forward?
So, well, you know that condos are not part of the equation anymore, and that's probably because the investors are out. Plus, I think they built the wrong stock in the city. I mean, not everybody wants to live in a 250 square foot studio, even 350 square foot studio, and they built too many of them. And then now the developers are saying we're not going to be back for quite some time because it takes 10 years to get a shovel in the ground. But there's so much supply out there in that area that many of them are being converted to rentals.
Yes.
So because they can't sell them, and that impacts everything. So if you don't have that first time buyer coming in to start that process, then it's a lot more difficult to get the market moving. But I think if you look at the activity, it's still active, right? It's still active, not the where it was, but people are still buying and selling for all the right reasons. But I think the reality is that we're starting to see rentals become more. There are more rental transactions in our system than sales, and that's going to probably continue to be a trend simply because of affordability. Affordability is the problem, and then other things like not building the right stock, and investors not wanting to invest anymore. in the condo market. Those things are very challenging. I think the long-term effect will be once there's better consumer confidence, you'll see a lot more activity.
It's all about consumer confidence. So what he's talking about with condos that, it was supposed to be the affordable alternative. Now, what happened to the alternative, I think a lot of greed and municipality, because getting all the permits and stuff like that. Some municipalities were easier to deal with, some not so easy to deal with. So the cost for the developer and the builder increased dramatically, but their profits margins increased dramatically. So, it was supposed to be the alternative. So what you would have is, you would have XY dollars per square foot. You have lower maintenance fees, but now the maintenance fees got up higher. The dollar per square foot got up crazy. And as you mentioned, they were building a lot of 2, 3, 400, 500 square foot condos. Now, if you're a family and you're downsizing, let's say, your husband and wife or couple, whoever you are, it's, for students, they want to be downtown. They want to be where the action is and stuff like that. But for people that actually want to live, you can't swing your cat around. You'll hit the walls. So that's what you're talking about. There's an oversupply of that.
I think people are, even for rent. So if you have to pay $2,300 a month to rent, that seems like a lot. It seems like
it is a
mortgage payment, right? But if that's your only option, then you'll take what you can get. People want to share that price, that cost. And you have to get a 2-bedroom. Now you're paying more. But I'd like to refer this issue that we're facing, really the Manhattanization of Toronto. Toronto, we just had the Council of MLS here in September, which is I'm the chair of an MLS group in the United States that does policy and does a lot of work around the MLS, creating best practices, teaching people how to do it. And there's about 1.3 people that's represented by CMLS. And they work with NAR, or we work with NAR. And we had the conference, we had 1,000 Americans come up and stay at the Westin. And they came, and what I heard the most was, first of all, they said, oh, we're going to bring clothes because it's cold. I said, no, listen, trust me, it's not going to be cold. And it was boiling. And they're going,
when was that?
This was the end of September.
September, so it's still warm, yes.
And it was a brutally hot days. And I told them, please, believe me. Oh, yeah, right, Canada. And I said, okay. So then they showed up. And you think about it in terms of what they said. This is a cleaner, nicer, safer New York. And they loved it. Many of them had never been there before or here before.
Yeah.
And so some of them came early, went to Niagara Falls. It was like a really great experience, but we are now becoming more like Manhattan than we want to admit. People work in the city, but they live outside in Durham. They have to travel. And now we're seeing that more and more. Yes, students have to be in the city. And you're even seeing the universities work with the condo people to place students in there. We're seeing that, but we did a survey. We did a survey at the beginning of the year, and we asked people, what are your plans for the next 5 years? 52% of the people who responded to that survey said they're going to leave the GTA in the next 5 years for many reasons: congestion, safety, lifestyle, costs. So they want to get out. Here's the sad part. When we asked our youth, our next generation between 17 and 34, 72% of them said they're going to leave the GTA in the next 5 years. That is a very
that would be the scary part.
That's a disturbing stat.
So the first stat is, people have worked and lived down in the GTA, Toronto, downtown Toronto, let's call it. If you're on the financial thing there, lots of them would buy the condos there, or if they had more money, they would buy the houses just a little north, whatever. But, when you talk about traffic congestion, parking congestions, there's always construction going on, right? And, they've been working on the QEW. That's hopefully next year will get fixed up a little more and be more open, because they were talked about taking that thing down. The city wouldn't even move without that.
Without it.
Right. So there's always these challenges. So during COVID, when people were working at home, people seeing different ideas and different thoughts. And as in the young 20s, everybody just wanted to go downtown. They didn't care. Even if they worked north, they didn't care because, you lived up in Richmond Hill or Aurora, Newmarket, Markham, Stouffville, or King, any of those outlying areas. What is there to do for them? They go to the mall and hang out.
Yeah.
But downtown, there's always things to do. So there was life down there. So now that's even changed because it's not as vibrant as it once was.
Nope.
It's gotten more expensive. So people are looking at different concepts of more affordability, different styles of life. They're still going to have those people that want to go down there, but not as much as you did. And if you look at, you're talking about, what was that percentage for the younger ones there?
72.
72%. Now think of that. That those 72% all pretty much, I can't say they all want to go downtown, but probably half of them at one time would have been on that thing to go
100%.
downtown.
Yeah.
So they would take those small little condos, as you're talking about, and they would rent them out, right? So this is part of the problem. So, the condo market is a challenging part of the market, that it will be for a while, but what'll happen is it'll become challenging in the reverse because you had stuff that, was coming on like every week we were invited to a new opening for a new condo, right? So now it's less and less of that. And a lot of the builders have stopped building right now till they can get rid of some of the inventory that's on board. But I see in 2 or 3 years, we're going to be in another predicament that we won't have enough new inventory to fulfill the needs, because you'll get more foreigners no matter what. Foreigners are coming to Canada. Like, they have foreign tax now and everything, but that's got to end.
Well, to your point on building, we're telling these guys, you got to build. You need to build, but they need to be incented to build. So we've been working with all the mayors here too, and some of them are amazing. This mayor is fantastic in Richmond Hill, and they are cutting the development charges because development charges are just taxes, right? They're just taxes, and then they don't use them to develop anything. They may down the road you say, oh yeah, we're developing, okay, but the reality is, in many cases, it's just a pipe. You just got to connect to the pipe, and I get it, it's very expensive, but the money that they get. So Bill 60. So Bill 60.
That,
yeah. So Bill 60 actually says they now have to have a better reporting structure for their reserves because they take the development charges and just put them into reserves. And there's billions of dollars in those reserves. So they don't really spend the money that they need to collect. But now the mayors are saying, you know what, you're right. So some of them have cut them significantly, like in half. But they need, every level of government has to incent the builders to build. Because you're right. Eventually, it's going to get worse.
Yeah,
it's going to get worse.
That's what I see.
Yeah, and when there's a new Canadian, it usually takes 4 years before they save enough money to go buy a home. But now people are starting to work together, so 2 families will be in a home because it's so expensive, and plus the maintenance costs. So what you're looking for here is that if you build enough homes, the prices will settle on their own. If the government is trying to push the price down by not offering incentives, that's a problem because that's artificial. Because eventually everything goes right back up like we saw. So we need to have better policy. We need them to actually create a world where it's not all tax. 36%, 30 to 36% of a new home goes to the municipality. That's insane. That's insane. We have a coalition. So I started this coalition a couple of years ago. And what we did there was we came out as a group, and we had Scott Aitchison, the MPP, or MP. Scott is the shadow minister of housing, and we were a good friend, and he came as well, and we were able to get the government of the day to agree to remove GST from purpose-built rentals. Now, this coalition came together a few weeks ago. We put out a statement, and our friend, the premier, he actually reduced the HST portion for first-time buyers up to $1 million of new homes. That is critical.
That is critical.
We get this.
People can't even realize how critical that is.
And the fact that these guys are saying, yes, we're going to participate in this coalition with you. And they came to TRREB, they sat with us, and they had a great time, and then we came up with this, and we moved the dial. The idea is to have government incent builders to build.
Yeah. Listen, right now, they were saying we're shortage of housing, whatever, and they called all this whatever. And in the COVID times, the market was so crazy that something would go out and you'd have 10 offers on it. At that point, yes, we were too short, but that was a short span. But let's look at the overall span of the amount of inventory to the amount of buyers. So 5,000 sales. And right now we have 14,000, what is it? 14,000 active listings, right? What I just seen today. No, 24,549 active listings. So you have 5 months of inventory right now. If another house never come on, you have actually 5 months of inventory. That's a fair amount of inventory, right? You really want to run about 3 months of inventory. So 5 months is a lot. So, and that was down because we were almost at 31,000 a few months back, right? So, what that means, they didn't all get sold. Like 11,000 of them got sold that we know in the last 2 months. But what happens is some of those houses just come off the market. So they'll go back on the market maybe this month, or they may go on next month, right? So when builders stop building, because it doesn't take one day. You see how a condo, like we sold all these condos here. So what happened is that used to be the Big Mac truck area. We used to go there, my uncle and everything, for trucks and that. So, and then the house, they owned all that land. So it took time, years. So by the time you buy the land, by the time you take the municipality, by the time you do all the planning, it takes years. And then, now fighting with development, some of the mayors have cut the development charges, some have not. I think they'll all have to follow suit. I know Richmond Hill, we haven't done that yet.
No.
Right? And I've been talking to David about that. We had him on the show. And I said to him, why don't we do the same? But so far they haven't. I think they should, but that's another thing. So, but they have to make sure it's given back to the consumers and not just the top end. And this is what the problem is sometimes. Right?
Well, you think that would be passed through.
Yes.
Right.
That's what you hope.
Idea. But think about the fact that Mayor Chow is now trying to increase LTT, and I guess they're going to pass it for luxury.
That is like,
and I'm shaking my head thinking, really, how much more pressure do we need to put on the real estate market? And yes, it's over $3 million, but is that really luxury anymore? I'm not sure that's luxury anymore. And if somebody was actually buying a home for $3 million, they're probably selling a home.
Yes, of course.
And so now, we're all talking about reducing taxes, and we've got our mayor who's like really tone deaf here on this and not getting it, that we should spur the market, get people going. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, for real estate during COVID, the economy would have crashed.
Of course.
I was on the phone with Tim Hudak while he's in the room with the premier and his team, and we were trying to work to get real estate deemed essential.
Oh, thank God.
And we did. I was on the cell phone. He was on the cell phone, and he was doing the questions. We were talking back and forth, and sure enough, so now that's a precedent. Real estate industry is deemed essential. How can they say no next time? And if you think about what happened there, if it wasn't for real estate, all that activity,
everything would have
crashed. Every real estate transaction spins off $70,000 in business. 70,000.
Isn't it 50 jobs per sale?
I don't know about the jobs, but I know about the money. If you look at $70,000, and let's say we do 70,000 transactions, do the math. Billions that we inject into the economy. So if that hadn't happened, we went crazy during COVID.
Yeah.
What would have happened? So no one would have been working. There would have been no land transfer tax to the government. Economy would have crashed.
Yeah.
And so we are an effective part of what happens. And that's the other thing. Even I was listening to the mayor talk about if there is no sales, real estate, there is no income. But let's raise it. Oh, come on. You're not helping here. And the signal is bad, the signal is.
I don't know why she would come up with that now of all times,
I don't understand.
It's challenging enough for virtually everybody. And I don't care where you are, because we all have to learn. You've got different segments of buyers, and the first time buyers been challenged. So that goes first, second, third, fourth. So you got about 5 different categories of buyers and sellers, but it starts right from the first time buyers. So when you're telling me about 72, but want to move out of the GTA, like even during COVID, you think of outlying areas, Durham, Belleville, Kingston, all, even the Maritimes and out west, they all went up dramatically. Right now they're being challenged again, right? So that you have to have a longer picture of everything. It's not just one day you can do something and it's going to be an automatic fix, because you fix something for one day, you break something tomorrow. So with the builders not building right now as much, in 3 years' time, they'll be suffering because of it.
Well, the market will suffer
Yes.
too, because remember, as I said, all of a sudden it's like a switch goes off and the market conditions change, and now you don't have inventory. So now it becomes seller's market. When it's a seller's market, what happens? Prices tend to go up. So it's a balance. They have to be more prescriptive in how they're going to address the real estate market to keep it balanced.
So with infrastructure, city planning are mostly needed. And like I say, a lot of the mayors now have cut development in half or cut it completely. How can the other ones not follow suit? That's like, and right now, downtown Mayor Chow is one of the problems, right? That I hear again, and there's a few places. I don't want to name names. I guess I shouldn't even said that, but it's difficult because if you have to be planning constantly. You've got to play your architects. You got to go to everybody involved. There's so much intricacies that are involved to build these big buildings or even do a subdivision, right? Even small ones today, all the things that are put into it. So the affordability challenge reshaping the way people buy and sell in the GTA. So in 2026, my thoughts are that hopefully interest rates will come down in early 2026, maybe March. And then later in the year, we may, as confidence comes, hopefully we can get our good friend south of the border a little more stable, right? Because, you know, it's not only caused chaos in our country, but it's caused chaos in his country and around the world.
Yes.
It has that much of a thing. And that's why I try and tell people we're not bigger than the market. Like people will yell at me for something. I go, I'm not bigger than the market.
No.
If you price your house here and I'm telling you here, and then you're saying, well, I'm not getting an offer. Listen, it's just not going to happen. If I want $10 for this bottle of water, if I'm in this room, no one's going to pay me $10. If I'm out in the desert and there's 100 people, I'll get $20 for that bottle, right? So it's the way the land lies. And right now the land lies that it's challenging, and I see the big banks are making major profits right now, right? Everybody else suffering, but the big banks. I think they need to help and do their part with the economy. That would be what do we have to say with the big banks as a group?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's always been a question mark,
Right?
How
Because we need them for financing.
Of course.
And they need us for finance, and that fills their coffers for the investors.
But I think also the developers need the banks, and they need to be able to have confidence in the developers. But if again, it has to come down to the fact that if we can't sell what's there, are they going to really build? But I think they have to build the right things. And we have to have that, we've been talking about this for a long time at TRREB, the missing middle, making sure that the laws are conducive to building as of right, triplexes, duplexes. Now we're starting to see people fill in, and even in Lawrence Park, they'll buy a single detached home and they'll put a semis on it.
Yes.
And then you're starting to see people wanting to put as of right. We want the as of right 4 stories and 4plexes, and that needs to happen, because the concept of missing middle is that you start out in a neighborhood, you live there your whole life. So and now you've got people who stay in their 2,500 square foot homes, but one person living there because they don't want to move out of the neighborhood because that's where their friends are, that's where their butcher is, and they know everybody. Instead of giving them the opportunity to go from like condo, townhouse, single detached home, and then backwards as life changes. But we're not building that. So we need to build more of that in the city. We need to build that more here. We need to give people the opportunity to stay in their neighborhoods and enjoy their quality of life and stay with their friends rather than move into a condo, half a mile away. So those are the types of things we need to see happen more and more in the city. But we also, like you said, we need to build more homes. With all these people coming in and the numbers are staggering, eventually they're going to want to buy their home. And if it's not there, what's going to happen? It's going to put prices up. And it's going to be a difficult time again unless we have enough inventory.
Do you have any insight of what's the immigration coming in 2026?
I've heard so many different numbers.
I know, that's why I'm just wondering if you heard anything that.
No, but I know that the numbers are still pretty high because they start off saying whatever, let's just use 400,000 or 275,000, whatever the number is, and then they report 500.
Yes.
And I know they're trying to.
It was always around 300 as an average.
It was 2 and change.
And then it got up as almost high as 8 with students and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they cut it back. So, people don't realize that immigration is still coming into our country. And, they have foreign tax laws, right, that are causing a little bit of affordability also, but it's not as much as they think. I think it was only around 5% that really made that difference. So a lot of that was smoke and mirrors. So, I see that if things are priced correctly, and what price is that? I take those 2 years out, and that's how I try and tell people. If you take those 2 imaginary years out and start from there, you'll be at your ground floor. Most of the time I've been in real estate went up 3 to 8%, whether it went up or it went down. And, you used to go into 7-year cycles. And the last cycle we had was a much longer cycle, that the 7 years went well over 7 years. So now, all we're seeing today is not the market is crashing. It's doing a recorrection. And this is what I try and explain to people, that no matter what, everybody has to sleep somewhere. I mean, not everybody, we have homeless people, unfortunately. Hopefully they can find a home. Maybe it's some of their problems, or they've created their own problems, but everybody needs to have a roof over their head. They can shower, they can eat and watch their TV, have a meal together. So you either going to rent or you're going to buy, or I'm going to move away. But even if you move away, you still got to do that somewhere else. So I've always said, don't look at real estate as a short-term thing. It's your home, it's your investment, because it is, for most people, it is your biggest investment. My parents lived in their house for 39 years. I grew up right downtown, the Lakeshore St. Joe's. Then we lived downtown, and then we came to North York, where they said 39 years. I didn't stay there that long, but my intention was always to go back there. But then I ended up moving up to Richmond Hill. And, the procession was but downtown, you move up and then you go back and you move down. Some people want to, sell their house and move back down. So that was a progression of this, that, kids, whatever, right? So right now, a lot of that's cut off right now. So we need to get that trail going back and forth to make the market work. And what does that take? Affordability, the right product, right? And, where I grew up, we grew up in a wartime bungalow built in the 1950s, 1,200 square foot bungalow. So on my street, nice little quiet street, all detached houses. Now I hear they want to do a fourplex there. Now I know that would just set the whole neighborhood up in arms. But they're big lots. So like you said, things have changed.
You have to do
right?
this.
So unfortunately, that way then people could live there versus moving 30 or 40 miles north or east or west, right? So yeah, you're always going to get those that are going to hold back. And then, especially in expensive areas, that, they bought in there for a reason.
Yeah.
So, you're in Forest Hill or Bridle Path. You don't want to see
Semi.
a 6-plex or an 8-plex or something, coming in there, so there is challenge, but you do need proper planning. Proper planning is essential, right? The one thing that I really loved was Bill 60. What are your thoughts on Bill? You mentioned it earlier there with the developers. What do you think, how that's going to change the demographics moving forward?
I think it's going to present a better picture for landlords and tenants. Right now, the the landlord tenant board, in my opinion, just hasn't operated properly for a long time. And it's causing problems for people who are landlords and tenants, because you can't get to a hearing, and they're not doing in-person hearings anymore. And the sad thing about in-person hearings is that not having them is that, when you're in person, you can make a deal, right? But if you're if you're virtual, you're not going to have that opportunity to get face to face. And as a realtor, this is how it's really done. I know everybody does it online now, which is a little weird to me, but if it just, I'd rather see a world where people are still behaving like people. Otherwise, AI will take over. But I think in this case, when you look at LTB, we want to see a better system that's fair. The stories I've heard are horrible, and I'll tell one. And this one's not that bad, but still bad. So the tenant hadn't paid for like a year and a half. And so they finally got to the hearing. And while they were in the hearing, they were giving evidence. And the lady who was the tenant actually said during the hearing 5 times, well, I guess I should move out. The adjudicator kept saying, well, no, you don't have to move. 5 times. So now how does that make the landlord feel? Well, wait a minute. This lady needs to go. And that's why we're here. And he's saying, no. So this is unfair. That can't be the mentality. It has to be equal and fair to the tenant. It has to be equal and fair to the landlord. If everybody's behaving properly, then it shouldn't be an issue. But if an issue arises, I had rights. This is my property as a landlord. And the tenant, if someone says their toilet is leaking or there's a problem and it's not being fixed, the tenant has rights. So should they be able to hold back payment? Maybe, but let's find out really how the system works better to accomplish that fairness for everyone. That's the challenge that's being.
Yeah, because it really went too far the one way. Like I had one of my clients, and people have to realize, if you pay 1 million or $1.5 million or something for a property, you have to pay the mortgage. So then a tenant comes in. So there's one tenant, it was up in my little guy, Tony, and he had the bungalow next door. He rented it out to a couple, but somehow that couple left and other people came in. They brought in more people. So now they're not 2 people. It's just like a hotel. People were coming and going, dogs shitting all over. It was a mess. He tried to get things. So they ended up owing him $41,000. What happened is it was an older bungalow, but it was still a livable bungalow. They beat up the house so bad, he had to tear it down, and they sold it as a vacant lot instead.
Wow.
So it must have cost him, I would have to say it cost him probably $300,000 or $400,000. Now, not everybody could afford, like, obviously it's, he's in his 60s. It caused him a lot of duress, but he still managed to get through it. A lot of people would have went bankrupt, like right out.
100%.
So, and I never understood that, why people could live in someone's house for free, and it would take you a year to get to go to thing, and then it'd be on a Zoom, not even in person, right? So at least with Bill 60, it swung a little bit back further, because you need landlords to help rent out, but you can't have just people arbitrarily having everybody coming in and they leave and then give it to somebody else, and then they don't pay rent for a year and you're stuck. So that's what I was seeing, was a lot of hardships
and no help,
zero help.
And so there was another one that I'm aware of close to where I live, not the same area, but so they finally got a ruling from the LTB, and the tenant was supposed to leave. Well, the tenant wouldn't leave. Okay, so the owners who bought the house wanted to move in and live there, drove up with their RV because they had nowhere to stay because they sold their home, and they wouldn't get out. And what they did was they blocked the RV so they couldn't leave. Now, come on. And no one's helping these poor people. This is insane.
Yes.
This is the kind of stuff that should not be happening in this country.
No.
And we
never did. It never did.
Should never happen.
Right.
And I think that that's really what's sad, is that we're losing sight of everybody's rights. It's not just these people have rights. We all have rights. And if the government isn't seeing that, then maybe we need to think about who the next government should be.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of people work all their life, work hard, and how we were taught was buying real estate and save up. Your real estate would be, especially for entrepreneurs who don't have a pension, that would be your retirement package. So, they would get enough, they'd have their house paid off, they'd go buy a second house, maybe for the kids or whatever, and they rent it out in the meantime. And then the tenants move in there and they would listen, tenants, I have no problem with tenants. I have tenants and I give them less than market value because I have good tenants that, I had a place for 7 years. I've only had 2 tenants in there. The first ones moved away. That's why they left. But there was a problem. I make sure it was fixed. Never bother them. So, they have their rights. And as a landlord, we have our rights. As long as they pay their bills and they don't wreck the place, I'm going to support them. But if they don't, then I don't have the money to pay, the taxes, the maintenance, the everything. And they're going up. My maintenance fees have doubled since I bought it. Right. So, maintenance was there and now it's here. So the affordability of a condo that eroded because the maintenance costs got so crazy. And so these are things that, that's why they had the rent controls and stuff like that. At least it's sort of maintained, but it's got to be a playing field for both parties, not just one party. So, now RICO's just been taken over by, we're not going to get into that, but the Ontario government is now taking over RICO as of Monday. So that was a shit show. I went through that in the 1990s. I lost an awful lot of money, a lot of headaches. Me and Mary Ann, that's why we have commission trust agreements because of our court case.
Yeah.
But we won't get in that here, but it's an ugly picture. So, everybody needs to be protected. And that's the most important thing. Make it easy and have protection for everybody because everybody's entitled to have a home. And I think it was always in the Canadian way to home ownership. When I grew up, I always thought of having my own home. You probably as a kid thought of having your own home one day,
Canadian dream.
And what I see, it still is. It just become, when I moved out of North York, I moved to Thornhill. Then I came to Richmond Hill. Affordability just pushed me a little bit further.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what? The thing about home ownership is important for people to note. It's that the first step that you take to wealth. When you buy a home, it's the first step you take to wealth. And because, we know that eventually, prices go up and down, but generally speaking, the price will always increase. So, and as you save money and you pay off your mortgage, now you have equity and that's wealth, right? That's the reality. So our whole issue is that we help people achieve their dreams and realtors have a noble job and you help people get to where they need to be. And that's the exciting part. But if we don't have government helping us, it becomes a problem. So
the government can help. And the one thing about the real estate industry, we were always pretty much self-reliant. Like sometimes we can work well and other times we get broken. And again, it's like, downtown, they want to raise the taxes over 3 months. They put the vacant tax in there, right?
Yeah.
But why put vacant tax in there? The people are still paying their taxes. Like, I don't understand that. And now you want to charge more money because the house is more. They had to pay higher land transfer when they bought the property, right? So, and then paying higher taxes. There comes a point where taxes can only get to so far. And I think the affordability with governments is taxes is a very big issue.
If we were going to suffer a reassessment from impact right now, I'm curious what the municipalities would do because we're at what, 2016
Yes.
values right
Yes.
now. So 10 years ago, before COVID, that's what the homes are assessed at.
Some of them.
Yeah. But what happens now? So are they going to, the rule is you adjust the mill rate. I don't know if I'm confident in that.
Well, this is what the problem is because you've got the different years. So whenever they got them there, they never bring them down.
Right.
So your taxes are still higher. And I guess I understand that because it costs more for the police force, costs more for the roads, the
Sure.
fire department,
I get it.
a lot of different things. So that part I sort of do understand.
Hold on a sec. More homes we build, the more property taxes they collect.
Yes.
So it is equal, right? So help us build homes, you get more property taxes. And when you build a condo, it's a concentrated property tax because everybody's paying
Yes.
all the way up.
Yes.
Whereas on a house like that, one parcel.
Yes.
So, I'm not sure I'm worried about their income.
Well, the other part is, they got the land transfer.
Yeah.
So the federal government gets so much, the provincial government gets so much.
Yeah.
So, the more houses that turn, the more money that put back into the municipality. Right?
100%, ton of money.
So let's go to an agent. What skills or mindsets would be most important for agents today navigating today's shifting market? If you were an agent today and you've been around, you see more agents than anybody probably. What would be your mindset if you were starting out today and what you'd want to share?
Professionalism, to be an absolute professional. And, unfortunately, as we have professional standards in arbitration and we see a lot. Everybody knows what's happened at RICO. That aspect, the fact that you need to be that trusted professional. The trusted professional is at the heart of everything that happens out there. And if you're not going to be that person, then why are you here? And it's disappointing to me when I hear about some of the events that happen out there, and we should all be shocked and pissed off, quite frankly. And with this market being this condition and some people, their behavior being such, that's not a professional organization. That's not professionalism. Professionalism is the person who's prepared to help that client achieve their goals and dreams. And that's it. And stop playing games. I find that to be hurting us repeatedly, deeply, and we've lost trust. Imagine people were going up to their agents and saying, "Hey, can I trust you?" That's what I was told by people after our most recent debacle. And it's something I've never understood, even when I was practicing. Really, are you so desperate to create that world? I don't get it. So, I mean, if you're not through and through professional, what are you doing here?
I don't think it could have been said better, because me, it's about transparency. That, listen, you are looking after someone's largest investment. I've spent millions of dollars on my education. Maybe I didn't get through, the best university, whatever, but I've spent millions of dollars on educating myself, with coaching, trainings, classes, continuing education, continuing learning. And this, so that's a great thing that we have, is to keep that, your 2 years, you got to take your courses and your FinTrack and stuff like that, because we have rules, we have regulations, and brokers have rules and regulations. And when that's broken, the system is broken. So, you're out to represent your client. So that's why I say integrity is, listen, collaboration and working together with realtors is number one. It doesn't matter what brand you are. I always say that realtor, we're collaborating, we're working on something together for the buyer and the seller. It doesn't matter what it is. You shouldn't be butting heads. You're going to have difference of opinions because you're sitting on different sides of the fence. But as professionals, maintain your cool, try and work it out for best for all parties, and be honest. Now, we know lots of sellers, and they may not be honest about latent and defect properties. So there's, law cases about that. We just had one that they worked out. I think there was going to be an $8,000 rebate for some issues that they had at that property, right? We had another one where there's asbestos in a building, right? So what is the remedy there? What is the cost of that? And so there's lots of different values that even as realtors, we don't know the exact cost, but it's our job to try and make a settlement between the parties that both people will accommodate and make it happen. You know, I remember downtown, I sold one of the newer buildings that had that plumbing that they didn't like. So we gave a 5,000, the Kitech, so we gave a $5,000 rebate for that would cover, because they were going to have to pay it coming forth. The buildings was going to have to change that. And so we figured that's roughly around 5,000. We made a settlement and made it happen, but it was transparent. It would have been if they didn't pick it up at status certificate and they said, oh, everything's good. And then it happens. Then later in time, those people are going to come after the realtor, which the realtor might not have known, but it's our job as a realtor, if you're selling condos, to know what's going on in that condo, right? Because you're supposed to be the professional. So they would hold you responsible, right? So if you're going to go act like, that's why I tell realtors not to try and do commercial deals. You don't know the commercial part of it. Stay away from it because you don't know it.
Exactly. Be professional. If you don't know it, don't do it. But I've got a story myself. This is when I was managing in Burlington. And so at my counterpart, because we shared these two offices, and I'm looking after the deals, and I get a call from an agent who had represented someone who bought a house right on the lakeshore. So, expensive home. And it happened to be the president of a massive insurance company who bought this home. And so they looked at the survey, and they noticed that they infilled into the lake. So that when the builder built the house, he infilled into the lake. So they're saying, we don't own it. And there was a right of way down there. Okay.
Oh, on the waterfront.
Yeah,
of course.
Of the city owned. So I called the agent, and they said, well, I don't know. I was never told about. Okay. So who was the builder? Gave me the builder's name. So I called the builder and I said, did you know you were filling into the lake? He goes, I don't remember. I said, okay.
Of course he didn't.
He didn't remember. I said, well, wait a minute. You filled into the lake. You're the guys who built this house. You're filling in. He goes, I don't remember. I said, well, do you remember the sound of the water splashing as you put those massive rocks into the lake? And he goes, I don't remember. I said, thank you for your answers. At the end of the day, we did an abatement. We gave them money and they were happy. But we're talking about an insurance company who probably had, a lot of money to fight this. But you make a deal, you make it work, you try to make everybody happy. But the professional side of this is everybody was ready to make it work for the buyer and the seller. And I think that that's the reality. But some of the stories I hear about not, people sending in offers and not hearing back, and then eventually they see the guy sold it himself or she sold it himself. That stuff just can't happen anymore. We're hurting ourselves. We really are hurting the industry. And, we're such a noble group, and we impact the marketplace. We impact the economy. We make people happy with their lives. They start businesses through us. We are such an important fabric to the economy and people's lives. We need to respect it, but we all need to respect it.
Yeah. What I always seen is that, if you're fair with everybody, 95% of your business is never a problem. It's the 5% that will cause 95% of the problems.
Yeah.
So I always try and figure out if I'm busy enough, those 5% of people that might cause me so much problems, I may not deal with them. It's when you're not busy enough, you deal with those people. I used to say, send them go to my competitors, right? Because no matter whatever you do, they're never going to be happy and they're going to create problems, and you already know it, right? So it's the same as on the Toronto Real Estate Board. 95% of the realtors are great realtors, and there's 5% that try and play by cowboy mechanism, that they can figure they can do what they want, when they want, how they want, and gives us the rest of us a bad name, right? This is my livelihood. This is your livelihood. So it's your job to protect it and keep the high standards, because, what I've seen over the years before, real estate and say car sales, but I'm not bugging car salespeople, and sometimes lawyers, the three of us would be throwing in a thing people didn't trust or whatever the case might be. But I've always made it a point that always be the trusting factor no matter what. That the people dealt with me, they know that I was fair, I was honest. I might be hard, but I'm fair and honest. And as long as you can be transparent with that way, and continue that way, we need to make sure that the industry has got a good reputation, that, we are the largest real estate board in the world. people look up to us, they watch us. You go all over the world with different boards. And it's essential, especially in today, that there's more problems than there ever was before. So, sometimes things can be a little rough, but you just got to reach out to people that may have the answer, the professional answer that can help you out. Do I know everything? If I don't know anything about something, I'm going to go make my phone calls and find out about it and do my research. Because I get people asking me about something. I said, listen, I don't want to comment because I don't have the whole picture in front of me. I'm a professional. Let me do my homework and let me get back to you. And then I can give you a better answer.
My uncle used to say, do you know for sure? And I would say no. He'd go, well, if you don't know for sure, you can't insist. You have to know for sure in this building, in this business. You have to know for sure because you're affecting people's lives. And if you don't know, like you say, go get the answer and they'll help. And now you're a professional. And that's what we're working on. This is one of the tenets of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. We need to increase professionalism. We want to have the trusted professional held out like this in great respect. And we have other people that have unfortunately hurt us a bit on that, but it's up to you. You are the people that make the difference.
Yeah.
We can only talk about it.
So you got a few more minutes?
Yeah, sure.
So anyone here have a question that, okay, right here, come up to the thing right here. No, one right there.
Touch points on pre-construction and people that they bought and they cannot close.
Yeah, that's challenging right now. That's a really, really challenging situation for people right now. That I have no answers. I just know for sure that the developers have been put in a tough spot here. And same with the people who can't close. If they can't, there has to be a way to work that out. And if it can't be worked out, I mean, again, I don't have that answer, but it is a sad situation. And I know people are renting them out in some cases. And I know some of the developers have also hired property management companies to be rentals. They've had to keep that place operating properly. I've also heard that the universities are talking to the developers because they need to put kids in places. But it's a tough situation right now, very difficult.
What I see there is the problem is with these contracts, they were all in favor of the builder. And as things were going good, people would, they bought them as investments. Sometimes they just buy it and just want to sell it and make 100,000 or whatever they want to make. Now, unfortunately, when things were going one way, that was no problem. But unfortunately, the market has changed so much that now the builders has his cost already put into it. They had to buy the land. They had to do everything, infrastructure, everything. Costly. So now, that then someone says, oh, I lost my job or whatever, and I can't close it. So what fault is that as the builder, right? I have to look at both sides because I'm a buyer. I have a place closing myself. And trust me, what I paid for it and what I could today, it's this much difference. So it's hardship. So, but you can't blame that on the builder because if you made a big profit, you're pretty happy. But now at the short term, it'll be a deficit. So here's what I would tell those guys. If you can close, because I don't see the builder's going to let you off unless you can. I had a guy right now who's been bugging me for 8 months. And I said, you need to go see the builder yourself, not through your lawyer, with them, and try and negotiate with them because they're not just going to let you off the hook. They have your deposit and, it will cost them to have that place vacant during your closing. What are they going to do with it? So unless you go negotiate with them one-on-one, they're going to chase after you. I know a hardship that I went through, this is before the even market changed. But, if you can close and you can rent it out, go try and do that. And you hold it on for a few years, it'll be right back. You'll be back to where you bought it. Real estate is resilient. And in another 3 years, I believe the market is going to go like this. 3 years. You can mark my time. Mark it down right here. December 5th, right? Or 6th, whatever day we're at right now, that in 3 years' time, you'll see the market going to be very, very strong. And if you got houses or you got multiple houses, you'll be in a good position. So go try and find a way to get that financing to close it, because there is no easy answer. The builder's not going to let you off so easy. I can tell you, I represent builders and I represent buyers, and I'm a buyer myself. So listen, I say, yeah, I just like to walk away, right? But you can offer your deposit. Maybe they'll say, okay, fine, take the deposit and leave. But they're not going to let you walk away scot-free. So, but it's a great question that we can't answer.
Well, yeah, but think about it in these terms. So the GTA is now 7 million people. 7 million. When immigration happens, where do they want to go? Where do they
Toronto,
wanna
mostly.
go? Of course. Now, yes, they place people in, Saskatoon and other places, which a lot of people stay, but eventually if their family's here, they want to come to be with their family. And it's always been the case. That's why we're building the highways. That's why they're investing so much money on infrastructure, because they know that this is going to continue here. It's just not going to stop. It is the Manhattanization of Toronto. We are going to see these things happen. We haven't even started building on the Portlands. Imagine what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Imagine if Google actually built that city. So things are going to change significantly. And yeah, some people are going to leave because they want different lifestyle, but ultimately this is the action. The action is here, right?
No. Okay.
Just want to know, what do you suggest for us as an agent to practice in this matter of pre-construction and dealing with the frustrated buyers?
I'm going to leave that to you.
Okay, fine. I'll answer that. So if you've already bought, there's nothing you can do. What's done is got done, guys. You have to understand, you make a decision. You're an adult. Listen, if the market went up and you made 100, 200, or 300,000, are you going back to the builder and saying, here, I'm going to split this 50-50 with you? Absolutely not. So, right now we're in a correction market, The market is not crashing. It's doing a correction. It should have never got to those prices, but a lot of people, including me, bought property and through greed or through hope or whatever vision. And, now it's going to be recorrected, but that's not the builder's fault. That was in 2021. So that's already 4 years ago, and it's not going to be ready till 2027. So maybe in 2027, it'll come back some, whatever. I don't know. But, if you're going to buy today a condo, and I wouldn't stop from buying a condo, I would make sure I'm going to a reputable builder, right? That, they have a thing to stand on behind them. And you have the confidence that they've been around for many, many years. It's the same as if I'm going to go pick a realtor, I'm going to go pick a reputable realtor, a reputable company, and have them help me do my buying and selling or investing. So that's why about having the transparency of high and have a high standard, right? I'm a household name. I've been around for 34 years, right? People know who I am. And that's why, and you guys being part of my partners, I adhere to high standards, because I don't want to be like just anybody, just come and go and do whatever you want, because that doesn't keep the high standards. So one of the things dealing with the Daryl King team is having high standards. And that's important. You as the CEO, you want to keep high standards with all the realtors throughout the whole Toronto Real Estate Board and the whole GTA. So, there's going to be buying and selling that's not up to him and it's not up to me, but I would still tell you to go buy today. I think you can't get a better time to buy than right now. If you ask me from 1 to 10, I tell you it's a 12. Go pick out what you want, see what your affordability is, and go get a good realtor and go get something. So someone asked me, is TRREB going to do something? We talked about this on Friday about Centikey lockbox.
Lockboxes. It's Supra that is the company we're working with. Yes. So we're putting together our launch for Supra lockboxes, and more information will be coming out on all of that.
So here's something I will agree or not to agree. And if they're going to make it mandatory, I'd be the first one to fight against it, because I think it's a decision that as realtors we need to make. The other decision, I didn't agree possibly on that either, but having to mandatory the center key, most of the time that wouldn't even fit into 90% of the place I got to put to the size of it. Right.
Yeah.
It's
not going to be mandatory.
Yeah.
It
So
can't be.
that part is okay. As long as it's not mandatory, I have no problem with it.
Problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
we did that. We tried that once. And I was a realtor. That didn't work.
Yeah. Right. It's got some good aspects, but it's got some bad aspects of it.
Sure.
Right.
People can choose. Right.
Someone else stand up, come up here for this.
Actually, I have one
Come up to the mic, come up to the mic, because
one suggestion and one question.
Sure.
The suggestion is regarding the MLS. I always wonder that if there would be any chance that the real people that use MLS or agents have access or some kind of systemized way that they talk, give report back to the people who make the system,
So
like for that, like you're talking about our MLS system, like say Realm. Are you talking about Realm?
exactly, yeah.
So you have an input of that. Everybody does.
yeah.
We do have it, but we have it through a pass that we have to call, and they don't answer many times. I tried so much when it started to just give them a bug that they have or something that we used to have and we don't have it, and it's very hard to use it. And I assume that the people that making the system, they don't have the real access to the agent who actively use it every day. They do have it, but it's just one person that give it to them. I'm thinking if there is a system that we can just give it to the people back that okay, here's the thing that we are using every day and it has a bug or it needs to be improved, that would be beneficial for both of us. The TRREB, which has a good asset on the MLS system, and the agent that they are using it every day. That's the suggestion.
Well, we do have, like, if you call help desk and you give them suggestions, actually, we do have a ticketing system with a lot of enhancements that people have suggested over time. And we want to hear your ideas because those are important for us to improve the system. And in order to make it future facing, you guys are the feet on the street. Those are the answers. These are the people we want to hear from. Yeah.
So, yeah, I went to a technology thing on Friday on the Toronto Real Estate Board. There was 90 people there. Most of them were brokers for the most part, or team leaders, whatever. So there was a lot of discussion that we had in there in the forum. And then we went to a focus group afterwards. So it was a few hours. I thought it was amazing. I mean, so many things that nothing just comes to and they throw it out. It's got to go through a long process to get to there. Lots of decisions, lots of arguments, but eventually, and is there another system? Of course, there's always two ways to everything, but you have to make a decision and move forward with something. Otherwise you can never progress. So you've got to constantly, the old Stratus that we used to know, I used to know that inside out. I could shut my eyes and just get around there. I'm still not a master of. I need to spend more hours working on it and figuring inside out. So when you have some spare time, go play around with some things, write down your questions, and then send it to the help desk. They got a lot of tutorials on that, right? That's one thing I do like about it. I think we'll have another round class in here. I know one of the TRREB people when I was down there, they're going to come here and do a class.
Yeah.
I will set that up for us. Okay.
There are a lot of cool things that people don't know or use. There's so many cool things. But my job, my first, I think they brought me in purposely.
Well, you're a tech guy.
Yeah, to bring in Stratus. So we brought in at the time. Remember, TRREBnet was dying, and anyway, I learned all about that and why it was dying, and I think we probably could have, at least later on, I realized maybe we could have done something with that. But so when we found Stratus, myself and I don't know John, do you know John? Yeah. So John and I were tasked with it to bring in a new system, and we ended up trying so many different ones, and we found Stratus off the shelf, and we kind of helped change the technology landscape, and we changed everything. and kept building on it. Now Realm is future facing. What we're doing with PropTex and with Realm is to prepare for the future. There's a lot of change coming, guys, and it won't be easy, but it's
And
going
for
to
older people like myself, you know, technology is a bit more challenging. That's why I have younger assistants to help me with that part of it. But, you know, you have to embrace it. So probably the guys are going to come in here. They've asked me to come in. So they've already asked. So I just got to
Good.
set up a date and we'll get them in here. But, you know, these are things that we have to embrace and learn this. You know, we talk about AI chat. Listen, let's use the tools that we have at our disposal that are make our life a lot easier, right? So, you know, information to me is everything. The more information I have on something, the more I can share with the consumer, right? So, you know, you'll see lots of times at nighttime, I'm sending you guys something into our chat. Could be 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 in the morning. As I'm up at nighttime, I'm always constantly trying to learn new things. And the technology part for me is a bit challenging, but once I learn it, I become a master at it. So become a master at something and then master the next part of it. That's what I would say to them, right? What would you say?
Perfect.
Right?
Now here come to the
No.
question.
Oh,
The question is that the MLS data, which I think it's TRREB biggest asset, basically will be entered by the agent and somehow financially supported by the agent that are in the TRREB. I'm thinking, is there any way that and then the external platform, all of them use the MLS data? Anywhere you see the data, it's coming from the TRREB. I was wondering that, is there any way that TRREB at least can give some advantage back to the agent that they give the data to, enter the data to the system, or somehow make them more, get the consumers, get a hold of the agents are more important than the other platform. The agents bring more value and at least either have some more advantage rather than the other people who doesn't give that data.
get that answer. I have no.
So you're basically saying other people that are potentially using the data and not, yeah, sure. Well, that's a broker.
They do it, or even brokerage, anyone who put this data on the internet.
Sure.
Because they get it from the TRREB, no question asked.
Okay, I'll answer your question. From 2004 to 2016, we fought with the Competition Bureau. My first interview with the Competition Bureau, because I was supposedly the expert in Canada on virtual office websites. So they met with me. I had my lawyers in the room. They had like 20 lawyers in the room. And we fought them and won the first tribunal.
Yes.
They came back and they said we weren't being innovative. We were not being innovative. Okay. And they won. And the order says we must give people who want to be virtual offices the data so that they can post it on their website because they're doing business in an innovative way virtually. Have you seen anybody being really innovative? No, they're all realtors. They get belly to belly and they do the right things, but the data is out there, like you said. But we are bound by the order, so it's law that we have to give the data out there to realtors. But one thing I made sure was in that order, that the only way you can use this data is for the provision of residential real estate brokerage services. In other words, if it's not your client, they can't see it. Okay. You know how hard it is for us to keep a lid on this? Okay. But it's law. We have no choice. Yes.
They're breaking some rules, some of them.
And how do we fix it? So now we're going to talk to them again. We met with them. So I brought my lawyers in. They must have had 20 lawyers there. And then the ones on Zoom that we don't know how many. So it is an unfortunate reality. They think that they can push the price of commissions down by doing this because innovative companies will charge less. Have you really seen any of that happen? No. So
There's more chaos.
it's like you said, the people who add the listings are the ones that should get the value of the listings, right? But then it's a relationship between all realtors because you want the buying agent to be able to sell that property to. So it's tricky, but I understand what you're saying. I want to protect the data, and that's one of the things that's in my
Oh, you
life.
pay for that data.
That's right.
You listen, guys, this is how you keep, listen, if I'm a doctor, I can't just go and say I'm a doctor and I'm going to look after you.
Yeah.
They go through 7 years of training, right? And then continue to go through training. We go through continuing training every 2 years. You have your mandatory courses plus other courses that we take. So why should someone just come off the street, say, hey, I got this thing, I'm a professional? You cause more chaos, so you break more things than you fix, right? So that's what I'm saying. Deal with professionals. Deal with someone that's been, I'm a licensed realtor versus a non-licensed realtor. Because, yeah, it might get a shortcut and they save a little bit of money, but the lawsuits that they'll have later on are going to be tenfold, right? That's why you have to have high credibility, high professionalism to stop that BS, because that just irritates the hell out of me when I see all these people come in here. And listen, I know the hours. Listen, some days I used to work 14-hour days. Weekends, I would work, people would go partying. I'd be working weekends. And these guys are trying to tell me my business? Come on. That's why I challenge AI, because they're not going to do the things I do. They're not going to go the extra mile or 2 miles or 3 miles. They're not, they can be 24/7 and spurt out some things. But are they going to go do the legwork and do this and do that? Right? Probably not. At least not at this time. Maybe they'll have robots that can do that later on. But, right now, it's to keep the professional at a high standard, to keep, listen, we can share, we're totally open. There isn't anything that a consumer can't find about a house today. That everything is available to them. So,
Except your knowledge.
yes,
Your knowledge is not available.
that's right.
Thank
Right.
you.
I got one more question quickly because I got to let him finish up here. Rose.
Coming to our office. So my question is, besides professionalism, as Daryl said, what major trends should realtors prepare for in 2026? And what will drive buyers' behavior in 2026? Thank you.
Well, so right now we see chaos and bad news all over the world. You've got, even this morning, you had to hear about Putin's response. You hear about the fact that there's weather events that are hurting people around the world. The specter of war, still. You've got trade issues now, tariffs, people in the States being hurt by it because they have to buy Canadian products that have tariffs. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? So that uncertainty makes people not just worried, but frightens them a little bit to act. So, but having said all that, the psychology of the consumer, or the psyche of the consumer, is very fragile, and it could take one event to trigger a completely different response. Just like in 1996,
Yes.
just like in 2009, just like in 2018. Like all of a sudden, something changes and it's hard to put your finger on what happened, and everybody's active and it gets busy. So COVID was a real surprise to everyone, but yet 1.9%, right? That's triggering, but there'll be one thing that potentially could trigger. I hope it's gradual. So it's not crazy. So we don't see it if it does happen. But what I think you have to be starting to prepare for is how, well, privacy is going to be an issue. Security will be an issue.
Major. Security has become a major issue.
Yes. So people are going to want to make decisions for lifestyle. People are going to want to make a decision because they don't want to drive in the traffic anymore. There's so many things that are going to happen. And that will, as soon as it's people feel more confident, they're going to start acting on their decisions. they will start saying, well, I want this. Then they say, no, I need it, and let's do it. So they'll come to that term. It's a good time. Let's just move. Then when one person does it, it's like a domino effect. I've seen that. You've seen it many times. But I'm not worried about overheating of the market anymore, because there's just not going to be enough product. So you might see that. And when they start building, you'll see absorption there. But the question earlier about, pre-con and some of the things that are going on, people are offsetting that.
That's the short term that
Yeah.
we've got to get over and get
Yeah.
through.
And then once all this stuff happens and everybody gets back to normal, then normal things start happening.
If you can remember back to September 11th, where the towers coming down by the terrace. Now I used to go around North America and I used to do a lot of speaking engagements, and I was booked to go to Florida. I think there was 2,000 realtors that were booked to go there. And my office used to be in the back, not here at the front, it used to be in the back. And I had my little TV there. And there was a few of us in my office having a meeting, and we picked up on that. And then a few more come in. We're watching on this little TV, the towers getting knocked down. It was like a nightmare. It's like what COVID hit. Like no one knew. It's like, so 2 days later, I had to fly down to Florida, and everybody said, "No, you going?" I said, "Absolutely, I'm going." I said, "I'm not going to let someone control my life. Life goes on. Your life is very short. Listen, everybody knows someone just passed away yesterday, the day before. I'm going to go, Bruce Johnson. Are you going on Sunday? No? Anyway, I hope we do an honor with him on TRREB. That's another story. But I'm bugging Remax to honor this gentleman. He raised $1 million through the sick kids and all of that. I just bought that painting for the miracle, for the kids there, Children's Miracle Network, just 3 weeks ago. Right? So I went, and I remember going to the Toronto airport, and I, used to be able to drive up there 10 minutes before and get, I fly first class, whatever, and then go, right? So I went at least 3 hours early. I remember there, dogs, machine guns, barricades. I'm going, I'm in like a third world country, right? This is at our own Toronto airport. It's like, and then you go through all the customs, and then they had all that phallics or whatever, that white powdery stuff down in Florida, all the fire trucks and stuff. So then I had to get the cab to go to my hotel. So out of 2,000 people, 800 people showed up. So we lost 1,200 out of fear. But I'll tell you what, I don't think there was a better seminar ever for the people that said, we're not going to let other people rule our life and change our life. So you guys have to make your decision and realize, like someone said, oh, it's winter, I can't work now. Like one of my clients, I listed his house and changed his mind because winter is it's not a good time. It's like, listen, well, you lose 6 months of the year if that's the case. We're in Canada. We're all seasons. So guys, listen to the professionals. If you're going to listen, don't listen to someone that just wants to tell you a bunch of everybody's the expert, because you're going to have the wrong answers and you're going to follow the wrong path. But you need to make sure you're working every day. And right now you have to work harder and more effective and more efficient than before. When the market was hot, you didn't have to work as hard. Go to work. Don't listen to the nonsense. Real estate is still a long time. Just give good decisions, help them with good, make the decisions. That's what the consumer is looking for you. They're looking for an expert that can give them guidance. That's what they need. They need guidance. And there's not one person, but collaborative. As the Toronto Real Estate Board, we're a big voice. So we need to let people know that it's not crashed the market. It's making a correction, and it will correct itself later on. So now let's continue business. Just be very vigilante of knowing your facts, your numbers, and everything else, and do your best every day. Just be honest, and you'll be fine. That's what I'm going to tell everybody, right? Anything you want to add?
Good.
Right?
Thank you for having me.
Guys, I want to thank John. I mean, to have the CEO of Toronto Real Estate Board to come to our office today, I can't even, I'm amazed. So, he has so much knowledge. He has so much good things to do. And this was a great session.
Appreciate it.
So those that, weren't here, we'll let you listen to it later on. And So this is Sharing Mindsets with Daryl King. Until next time, I want to say God bless to everybody. Let the market make its corrections that it's got to make, and let's continue to do what we have to do. And let's all have a happy holiday. Try and help some of the food banks, the other things, because they're suffering. So let's do what we can do to make it a better place.